Hello and welcome to Hammer Environmental. My name is Greg Hammer. Today I want to talk to you about prior converted cropland. This is a really important topic. Whether you are a developer, a farmer, a landowner, understanding labels and identifications of prior converted cropland on your property can be very, very important as it relates to use and maintenance of that property, or maybe even the resale value of it as well. So today, I'm going to focus on the Food Security Act side. So that means that this video is mostly geared for those individuals who are farmers who want to participate or who do participate with USDA programs, whether there's some type of benefit that you're receiving. So whether it's crop insurance subsidies or conservation payments, when you agree to receive money from USDA, you have an obligation because you are making a commitment. You're certifying when you sign those forms that you are in compliance with the wetland conservation provisions and the highly erodible land conservation provisions as well. But today our focus is on prior converted cropland. So what does that even mean? Converted from what? So basically what happens here is it is a designation that the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service puts on a piece of property that says this land was a wetland in the past being at some point before December 23rd, 1985. And that's the conversion part. And it's basically grandfathered in because of a couple of things. One, the land was converted before this date of December 23rd, 1985. And the reason that's important is because Congress passed the Farm Bill and President Ronald Reagan signed that Farm Bill on that date, December 23rd, 1985. It changed the way farmers interact with USDA. From that point forward, in order to be eligible to participate with those programs, to receive payments and benefits, an individual had to be willing to comply with wetland conservation provisions and those highly erodible land provisions as well. So here's the definition of prior converted. And I think it's important that I read it right from the manual so that you'll understand exactly what it is. I'm going to break it down for you and talk about some of the things that it says. Prior converted cropland is a converted wetland where the conversion occurred before December 23rd, 1985. So the conversion meaning basically in the eastern part of the United States where our climax community is woody vegetation, that conversion, there was no longer woody vegetation on the site. An agricultural commodity had been produced at least once before December 23rd, 1985. So what is an ag commodity? Well, USDA has a specific definition of what an ag commodity is. So for example, loblolly plantation is not an agricultural commodity. A vineyard is not an agricultural commodity. You might think so, but it does not meet the USDA definition. And the USDA definition ties an ag commodity to any crop that is produced by an annual tilling of the soil. So that's very important. So back to the definition. So one time before December 23rd, 85, there's evidence to support that an agricultural commodity was grown before that date, and as of that date, December 23rd, 1985, the area was capable of producing an ag commodity. Basically, what that means is it did not support woody vegetation. So that's what prior converted cropland is. It was a wetland going back in time, but because of the conversion that occurred before 1985, and an ag commodity was grown, and an ag commodity could be grown on that date, it is eligible to receive the stamp of prior converted cropland. Now, who makes that decision and why would they make that decision? So, USDA is responsible for the Food Security Act, and the Natural Resources Conservation Service is the agency that's tasked with making that decision. But they only make the decision if there's a request, and they need to receive a request from a producer, a farmer, who wants to have that designation on their land. I've got a piece of property. I need to know what I can do with it, how I can manage it. Can I drain the area or not? Well, this is how you get a prior converted cropland. So there's a specific procedure that's involved with that. If you have questions about that, you can ask your local USDA office, or you can give us a call here at Hammer Environmental. So how long does that decision last? How long is it valid for? So when USDA makes decisions, when they make these different wetland designations on a farmer's piece of property, that decision is valid forever unless they change the law. It does not change. So what that means is there could be decisions that were made in 1999 by a previous landowner. They made a request. USDA put a stamp of some designation, prior converted, on a piece of property. Well, in 2023, what was done in 1999 still applies. It does not expire. The land ownership changes, it does not expire. It stays with the land. A new lease comes up and somebody else is farming the property, it still stays with the property. So it's important if you're picking up a new piece of land, and if you don't know the history of that site, if you're not sure and you're participating in programs, you have to understand that it is your responsibility. Now, the agencies are there to help you along and guide you and provide information for you. But if you ever get stuck and you have some questions about it, that's one of the things that we can do here at Hammer Environmental. We can help you understand what's happened in the past, and we can help navigate through that process with the agencies if you need that assistance. So, can you challenge the decision that the agency has made? The answer is yes and no. So let's talk about the yes part. So you can challenge a decision that was made by NRCS under certain circumstances. That is, if the decision is your request and it's new. So basically, once you get a new request and the agency will issue a determination to you, you'll have a 60-day window to challenge that. And there's different ways to challenge that. There's formal ways, there's informal ways. If you have questions about that, again, I encourage you to talk to your USDA office. If you're not satisfied with the answer, we'd be glad to help you with that. But if you don't challenge the decision within 60 days, if you think it's incorrect or you're just not sure about the decision, that's the time to do it. Because once you wait and that decision becomes final, there is no going back. That challenge is over and the decision stays with the land. There's a couple of exceptions when you can go back even after that window has closed. And the first one is a natural event. So, for example, there was a flood and you had an area that was designated as a wetland, but that flood brought in a whole bunch of sand and it covered up all that area. And maybe the area is no longer a wetland. And in situations like that, you could ask the agency to revisit the site. The second situation is if there was a mistake that was made by the agency. And so you have to demonstrate to them that they made a mistake. They also have to agree that you are right. And at that point, they can go back and they can revisit this situation. Okay, so what is it? Prior converted cropland. It was a wetland in the past. It was converted before 1985. An ag commodity was produced on it, and it was capable of producing an ag commodity. Who makes the decision? NRCS. How long does the decision last? It stays with the land forever. Can you challenge the decision? Yes, but it's a short window, and you have to challenge it at that point in time. So, what's next? Well, in our next session, I want to talk about the use and management of prior converted cropland as it relates to agriculture. And then we're going to get into the issue of, well, what happens to this prior converted designation when it goes into another use? So, for example, maybe a property was sold and it's going into a development use. We'll talk more about that. Thank you for joining us today. Hammer time.